welcome. One Earth, One Family, One Future. India's G20 presidency has marked a significant milestone in its global leadership role. With India taking the presidency for the first time, it is steering discussions and initiatives amongst the world's major economies to address complex challenges. Today, Akashvani brings to its listeners an exclusive interview with Ms. Meenakshi Lekhi, Honorable Minister of State for External Affairs and Minister of State for Culture. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
The G20 or Group of 20 is a premier organization that represents around 85% of global GDP, over 75% of world trade, and about two-thirds of the world population. In this context, we would want to understand, ma'am, what is the significance of G20 meetings and what is the impact of Indian presidency on the discussions and outcomes of the ongoing G20 meetings?
So there are two aspects to it. One aspect is that India, if we look at it, the internal situation, we have completed 76 years of our independence and Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav has just gotten over and we've entered Amrit Kal. The call by the Prime Minister for Amrit Kal has been that we have all to work towards making India a developed nation in coming 25 years. So when India, the modern country India, not the ancient India, but the modern country India, which is a republic, came into existence just about 76 years ago, and next 25 years are going to mark our commitment to our motherland and making India a developed nation. And that is possible only when every Indian does its job right, which is Amrit Kal is also a Kartavya Kal, that the motivation for all of us has to be the work towards nation building. That's one aspect. At this point in time, we assume the presidency of G20. How important would that be? So building India right from difficult phases which the world has witnessed recently, plus our internal issues, you need expertise, you need finance, you need knowledge, you need cooperation. All those aspects can only come once you deal with other nations. The corollary of that is that your difficulties, your positioning has to be understood also by the other nations. So while we are a country of the North, by virtue of being a member of G20, we continue to be a country of the South because we represent 1.4 billion people. So our challenges are huge and we have worked on South-South connectivity, etc. So balancing act of taking the global economy forward because it's a economically oriented workforce, which is G20. At the same time, until and unless you deal with the rest of the problems of the world, neither will G20 succeed in its commitment to better economic conditioning for everyone to grow, and nor will rest of the world benefit with G20 or economic well-being. So there has to be a shared commonality of purpose, and that shared commonality of purpose or the bridge between the two thoughts is well represented by India and India's presidency. So it's a most opportune period for India as well as the globe that this interchange has been possible because of India's presidency. And thus, India's presidency will deal with multiplicity of subjects and, as you know, is already dealing with it, and the scale at which India has tried to showcase its multiplicity of challenges, cultural values, so on and so forth, to bring the world together on the positive aspects of living together, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam.
So, ma'am, you are talking about the betterment of the whole of the world. So now the G20 Leaders Summit is scheduled to be held on 9th to 10th of September in Delhi. So how does the outcomes of G20 Summit will impact the common citizen, not just in India, but across the globe?
You see, ultimately, whatever the governments of the country do, it impacts the common citizen. On part of India, we've tried to do whatever best we could, even utilizing this as an opportunity to showcase who we are. Small thing, but it has a huge impact. For example, we are having 250 plus engagements of various groups: infrastructure, pharmaceutical, health, foreign policy, finance, so on and so forth. On every vertical, we have 3-4 meetings. So 250 engagements, 52 locations across the country, upgrading the infrastructure in those 52 locations. Jan Bhagidari has been the biggest element of our G20 celebration because Prime Minister was insistent that it cannot be a Sarkari program, that people of the government on all sides get together in a room, discuss something and go on their ways. No, that's not the way. There has to be proper participation of the people. the heritage part, the travel part, showcasing our culture, showcasing our food, dance, music, books, tourism sites, etc., etc. So all that has been incorporated into a permanent part of every meeting, whichever area we are having the meetings. So obviously, if there is a boost to tourism, local people in those regions benefit. Small example, but when Varanasi was redone, I believe 10 crore people have visited that area by now. So obviously, which means the flower seller, the hotel guys, taxi, scooters, everyone's benefiting out of it. So when you do such events, for example, Culture had its meeting at Hampi. So people get to know what Hampi is. People get to know how great the civilization was. People get to know our architectural quotient, value systems, trading capacities, administrative systems. And a lot of people who have come will go back and discuss and talk about it. And obviously you'll see many more visitors visiting that area. So common people would have benefited out of it, plus putting all these places onto the international map. That's how common man benefits, because common man has daily struggle of winning bread for its family, of identity, knowing who we are, taking pride in one's cultural value systems, taking pride in the heritage, weaving, clothing, so on and so forth. I think every engagement has been designed to promote local cuisine, local culture, local tourism, participation of local people, administration, equal participation from all sides, and you see the results.
True, ma'am. So, as you have said, the importance of culture and importance of these events. So, we are seeing that the Indian government is also pushing the culture component very seriously in the G20. And it is striving to position culture at the heart of policy making. So, for the benefit of our listeners, we would want you to throw some light on cultural diplomacy and the potential of cultural industries, as you have already mentioned, in driving economic revival, especially in the post-pandemic period.
I'm grateful that you touched upon the pandemic. So, two major aspects have touched the world and world economy very deeply in recent past. One is pandemic, and the second has been the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Now, because of the two things, the supply chain management got disrupted, and world was struggling with its economic well-being and food security, energy security. So when all these problems were being dealt with, India received the presidency of G20. And obviously, to handle all these things, on request of India, culture was added as a component of G20 engagements. And culture, we feel, is a non-threatening subject because it's not just entertainment, it's the life of people. It means anthropological studies about people, it's about education, it's about academics, it's about economy, it's about entertainment, it's about travel, it's about food, it's about sustainable lifestyle, especially India offers that. Textiles to gourmet to designing to sculpture making to creating a Guinness record in terms of Lambadi embroidered pieces, showcasing different architectural styles has been quite a journey. And culture component in any economic system plays a very deep role, because once the economies do well, India is an exception, but when economies do well, people obviously look forward to creativity and entertainment and enlightenment and things. India has been a peculiar case that even when we were going through difficult circumstances in the past, but the best thing about our culture is that in spite of negative encounters, by and large, people had the resilience to rise up while in ashes, to battle against the negative forces, to get together and stay positive. So culture becomes an important part of our life, making people understand who we are, getting people to know us better, because then economy, business, science, technology, everything gets a better understanding.
Talking about our cultural heritage, the theme of the first G20 Culture Working Group meeting that was held at Khajuraho was protection and restitution of cultural property. In this, India has once again reiterated its call to the world for the voluntary return of the plundered heritage. So we would want to learn about the efforts, especially in the last 9 years, that the Indian government has made to get back our cultural heritage.
So we've been sort of rallying this, especially when G20, while India is having the presidency of G20, we've utilized this period to voice the concerns of the Global South. Global South was synonym for less developed countries, by the way. So we've taken the call to represent the concern of the Global South because it was the countries of the Global South which were plundered during imperialistic period. Whatever does not belong to you and has been brought to these countries who are well-developed nations during imperialistic period should be given back to the people it belongs to because it's theirs. Simple. It's a question of correct moral behavior, correct moral conduct. Before 2014, India only got 30 plus, I think 32 or 34 objects from outside the country. 70 years of independence and we could only get 30 or some odd number. Post that we worked and worked and worked at it. And you'll be happy to know that we have, I think today, close 250 plus, more than 250, 260, because today the number is about 300 plus. So we worked because there were cases pending in other countries. Those cases had to be pursued. Conversation had to be made and negotiated with other countries, and some of those who wanted to return did not know how to return, so paperwork, etc., travel, insurance. So a lot of back-end work happens when these things happen. So we've been on the job, especially under the guidance of Prime Minister Mr. Modi, because he's constantly been at it, and this is one of his subjects which is very close to his heart. The latest news which I've got on this subject is that many countries have come forward to support our initiative and they are willing to return many things. The impact has also been that global awareness on the subject has come, especially amongst the countries of the South. And this global awareness has led to return of many artifacts by many developed countries to many other countries. So I think Congo, Nigeria, Nepal, Indonesia have also benefited. They have also received few things and they are in the process of claiming several things. So this is the positive impact that the countries, which are countries of the North, the global North, have decided to return many things voluntarily. So that's, I think, in terms of impact assessment, a positive sign that it's not just for India, it's not just for us. Of course, a whole lot of us, because a lot of heritage from India went out during this period, but for several other countries who are similarly placed and who have also suffered. So does the representation of Global South, being the voice of the voiceless, is the gown which India has donned during G20.
I'm talking about South-South cooperation. You have recently spoken about the India-Latin America ties, that these two regions are supplementary and complementary to each other. So what are the common goals that India and the Latin American countries in the G20 have, specifically with regard to the South-South cooperation?
See, you must understand a couple of things. Between India and Latin America, the two regions which are very far apart because they are two ends of the globe, yet we are very similar as people. In value system, historically, we are very similar. Family becomes important, open societies, happy people, resilient people, welcoming, warm, affectionate. Many characteristics you will find very alike between the two areas. But because of our distance, we've not really been big trading partners. We have respect for each other in terms of cultural value systems, but we are not being great trading partners. So COVID showcased that deficit of engagement. And when we made our vaccines and we decided to extend a helping hand to everyone around, so we got many demands coming from Latin American region, which showcased that there's a possibility of greater engagement and trust. We trust each other. We are very warm. And I always say the relationship is not just about culture, but it's also about economy and trade. And because until and unless your stomach is full, where will the culture go? You need to be well fed. Your education and other health needs need to be taken care of before you can create cultures. So cultural similarity became the basis of our long-standing friendship and turning it into faith on each other. During COVID, the vaccine Maitri, which happened between India and the rest of the world, further strengthened our existence. And on their part, understanding that inexpensive medicines, which are very good quality medicines, and India is a competing force in the world, and plus other global partners, India could be trusted more. And thus, trade and economy, green energy, resilient infrastructure, our engagement on CDRI, which is disaster resilient infrastructure, are some of the engagements in which India could contribute a lot to this region, and this region's learning can contribute a lot to our region. So mutual interdependence is something which is a ray of hope, and we can work together. And culturally, of course, if you see the colors, you see the weaves, you see, it almost looks a replica of several regions of India. So it's a happy feeling.
You have touched the topic of the disasters. So we are seeing that climate change is a topic of concern for people around the world. And recently a UN report has stated that climate-related natural disasters have doubled in frequency between the years 2000 and 2019. We are also seeing that the green finance commitments which have been done by the developed nations are not up to the mark. So in this direction, in the context of G20, what steps are the Indian government taking in the direction of getting green finance for the developing nations?
So in the beginning, I must say that amongst the G20 countries, India is the only country which has met its goals, declared goals, ahead of its time. So we are in a stronger position to articulate our point of view. So we are articulating our point of view that financial commitment has to be made by the people who are in a position to give finance, because they are the ones who have the money. Number two, they are the ones who are also responsible for many things which have happened in the past. So there's a shared responsibility. You can't burden a country or people who are already burdened. I mean, a person who's struggling with daily food and water requirement, can you tax that person who's on the subsistence level of existence? So, but the ones who have mined, who have extracted gold and diamonds and riches, need to pay more because they have, one, availability of finances with them. Two, they are the ones who are mining. So, keeping all this consideration in mind, the green finance becomes a very important factor. And as I said earlier also, that before you can enter creative economy and several other aspects of high value living, food has to be in your stomach, your healthcare needs have to be met, and only then you can step up your existence. So basic needs have to be met. So India's point has been, there's something called energy justice. And there cannot be energy apartheid, that some basic needs of every human being need to be met. Food, fertilizer, fuel, basic clean energy. These have to be met. And that is directly related to climate justice. That is directly related to green finance, directly related to production of renewable energy. So our commitment, we've made our concerns and commitment known to the world, especially when with our kind of complexities, our kind of population, our kind of resources, we are the only country who's met its goals, which goes to showcase our sincerity of effort. And from a very sincere position, from a position of utmost clarity, India has stationed itself that it's only morally correct to converse on these subjects. It's only right for the world to come around these subjects, because there has to be a balance between the efficient systems, whether financial or climatic or living standards, and some basic requirements of rest of the society. So there are issues of pollution, there are issues of energy justice, there are issues of food security, there are issues of fuel security. So whether it's green hydrogen, it's atomic energy, its well-being of mankind, its pharmaceuticals. So many things interlink with each other, and thus being a bridge between the North and the South is how we see each other, and we've articulated both, because even for the well-being of the North, so-called the developed countries or the G20 countries, it's important that rest of the world is taken on board. Only can other countries survive. So it's for mutual benefit in building resilient supply chains and take care of food, fertilizer and fuel for all.
India has always pushed for reforms of multilateral institutions such as United Nations, and with reference to G20, India is trying that the African Union, an influential organization consisting of 55 member states, be given full membership in the upcoming Delhi summit. So from the Indian standpoint, how important is the inclusion of African Union in the G20?
Very important. Very, very important, because without Africa being on board, which is a huge source of minerals and mines and metals and so on and so forth, such a large part of humanity gets unrepresented. And if that gets unrepresented in the economic policy making, this region will be left behind. This region has to be taken forward along with others. And the dependence of others on this region in terms of mines, minerals, resources is huge. So until and unless you support each other in policy implementation, working, understand each other's concerns, the world will not be able to progress ahead. So if we have to progress, get ahead for everyone's well-being, we need to put African Union on the board and on the high table. And that's been a very, very smart initiative of India, especially the PM, to get African Union to participate with us.
Ma'am, the upcoming G20 Culture Ministers meeting is scheduled to be held on 26th August in Varanasi. So what is the theme of the meeting and the expected outcomes?
So expected outcomes will wait. And the theme is basically on 4 verticals. One is return of patrimony, the artifacts which have gone out to the places where they belong, sustainable development in terms of using culture as part of sustainability, using technology, digital inclusion to digital certification, preservation, conservation, for museums to preservation to knowledge cultivation, and then working around in harmony, whether it's climate change or the basic value systems have to be coordinated, and culture connects all basically. So the theme, I would say, is culture connects all, and it's a very positive theme that when you start understanding each other, so many things go out of your mind. The initial hesitations by coming from different cultures are so deeply entrenched in all of us. Once you break those hesitations, you discover at the level of soul, at the level of persons, at the level of people, we are all just but same. And thus human race has to survive not only for itself but for the survival of this planet. We all need to work in coherence, in harmony, and for each other, away from selfish behavior and conduct. So let's pray that culture connects us all comes together.
Winding up, ma'am, during the celebration of 77th Independence Day, the Culture Ministry has launched Meri Mati Mera Desh campaign to pay tribute to the Veers who laid down their lives for the country. So what are your thoughts on the campaign and its success considering the Jan Bhagidari component of it?
So I must say, in my constituency, usually across the country, every Lok Sabha constituency will usually have 2 districts. My constituency is carved out of several districts, so I have about 5 districts. And we launched it in every district on the 15th of August. And all the 5 districts, the idea is basically, and again the motivation comes from the Prime Minister directly, that every region has produced Veers and Viranganas who have sacrificed themselves for the well-being of this country so that we could all live and be free. Now, as free people, have we really done justice to our forefathers who sacrificed everything for this motherland? Or we can up our game, perform better, so that India of their dreams can be constructed. And this is the motivation. So recognizing all the Veers and Viranganas from the region, putting up their plaque in every district. Tricolor, because I'm sure every Indian, the moment this tricolor comes into anybody's eyes, all of us suddenly become very energized and energetic. And that energy, if directed in the right direction, there is not a dream which is unachievable for this great country. So we need to set our eyes on our dreams and achieve it and make it possible, because the pledge is of the tricolor. And that pledge, remembering our forefathers, the Veer and the Viranganas who have died for the well-being of this nation, keeping them in mind, knowing that the freedom did not come cheap to us. Millions have died to give us our future. So we are duty bound to take pride in them and yet perform our duties. So if each Indian does his or her own duty with the best of their ability, country will go forward. So while we have entered Amrit Kal and we just finished celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, this Amrit Kal is also going to be Kartavya Kal. Kartavya towards our nation, Kartavya towards planting trees in the names of our Veers and Viranganas, understanding that while we need to survive and live, we need to take care of Mother India, we should not be polluting, we should work towards carbon fixation, do not use plastic, work towards Swachh Bharat, work towards Girl Child. There's so many things each one of us can engage oneself with. So bringing us all back to the focus of Kartavya, work towards nation's heritage, well-being, and as one people, we need to work together for the peace, harmony, and taking pride in all that our ancestors and the Veers, the Viranganas of this country have done. That has to be our motivation.
Thank you, ma'am, for coming to the Akashvani studio and enlightening us with your kind words.
Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
You were listening to an exclusive interview with Meenakshi Lekhi, Union Minister of State for External Affairs and Culture, on India's G20 presidency. Interviewer was Himani Rana, Akashvani correspondent. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of Akashvani. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may share your feedback about this program through email at airnsttalks@gmail.com or WhatsApp on 92890 94044.
तुझसे कौन बड़ा है तू नैया तपस्या भी है तू समाधि भी।
मैं जानती हूँ बेटा हो या फिर बेटी, आप बहुत अच्छे पिता बनेंगे।
देखिए मुक्ता आर्ट्स कृत मेगा सीरियल जानकी जल्द आ रहा है सिर्फ डीडी नेशनल पर।
ये है आकाशवाणी और आप सुन रहे हैं FM गोल्ड 100.1 पर।